practice. So the Warriors are going to be very, very rested in this series. So we have two teams in the finals, two very different paths. For Boston, they are climbing the mountain. It has been an arduous task, and the Warriors are on the ski lift. Hi, guys. We'll meet you at the top. That's what we have, an experienced, rested team. Game 1 is Thursday. My only concern for the Warriors is rust. They're moving a bunch of new pieces back into the rotation. They will not have played in a week. Could be a little off, especially in the first half. The Celtics are unquestionably better than the Dallas Mavericks, who the Warriors easily disposed of. But the Warriors have something, and they used it against the Mavericks. They have multiple defenders, elite defenders. Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins. And they made life for Luka difficult. You're not going to stop great scores. Tatum's going to get his. But Luka shot 48% against the Suns and 41% against the Warriors. And that's why I picked Golden State to beat Dallas, and it's why I think the Warriors in 5 or 6 beat the Celtics. The other thing is, Boston's assignment defensively was much easier against Milwaukee when Middleton got hurt. Stop Giannis. And it was much, much easier against Miami because this is how they're currently constructed. Try to slow down Butler. The truth is, some nights they couldn't even do that. Golden State has multiple players who can drop 30. Wiggins, Clay just did. Steph, Jordan Poole. There's just too many players for Golden State that can score. And if Marcus Smart doesn't deliver offensively in at least 3 games, I don't see him winning. The other thing is, Boston is viewed as the league's best defensive team. Every one of their starters got at least a vote for all defense. They're the better defensive team. But the Warriors were top 3. And now they're bringing Gary Payton II back, elite defender. Iggy, super savvy defender. Otto Porter can D. Wiggins can D. Clay can D. Draymond can D. So the other thing to add to this, which is obvious, is one of these teams has no final experience. The other has in the 100-plus games of finals experience. I think Boston, and I saw this against Miami and Milwaukee, Boston could outplay Golden State in 4 to 5 games in this series and get beaten 5 games. They don't necessarily play well in the last couple of minutes. They don't play necessarily well at the end of quarters. They're young, they don't have a ring, and they play tight. The other thing to add on to this, and Boston's got a puncher's chance because they can be suffocating defensively, is that Golden State is easily the best team in the league at home. Boston, last couple series, they've lost 4 home games. And we talked about this earlier. A lot of Celtics fans, not that they're not loud, but the Celtics have been so good for so long, some of the fans are older. In the Warriors' place, the Warriors were terrible forever, and usually the younger the fans, the louder the fans. They lubricate more, they drink more. That Warriors crowd is really, really young and really, really loud and really, really lubricated. They are 9-0 at home in the playoffs, and in many instances have been outplayed at home in games and find a way to win. So I think the deck is stacked against Boston, but it was stacked against Miami in Game 6, and they won. And you got to have some guile to get to the finals. This was not an easy road for Boston. It was a much easier road for Golden State. That's because they're better. They're deeper, they're better. They've got a 9 to 10-man rotation, and they do multiple things well. I still don't know if Marcus Smart's not scoring. I think Boston's incredibly They could lose if Marcus Smart's not scoring at home as an 8.5-point favorite to a hobbled Miami team because I just saw it. So I think Golden State's the clear favorite. But, and I said this about Golden State in the Dallas series, what I worried about was overconfidence. Players are smart. Like, it's hard to be as good as Alabama year after year because Alabama knows they have better players. And the fact that they rarely play poorly is a testament to the culture that Nick Saban's built. The Warriors, and we've seen this even in the KD days, they have mail-in games. They lost by 50 to Memphis. They got crushed by Dallas, at least for 3.5 quarters. So I think Golden State knows they're better. They've been here. Boston's the new kids on the block. And the Warriors are really rusty in the first half of game one. And that is Boston's opportunity. Boston's opportunity in this series to shift it is have a great first half and then hold off the Warriors and win narrowly. Then it'll be interesting. Then we have ourselves a series. But if you can't beat the rusty Warriors up a little bit in that first half of game one, it could be quick work. In the NBA, it's always been understood that there's 7 or 8 players represented often by 1 or 2 super agents. Clutch Sports now has a lot of power. David Falk, when he was Jordan's agent, had a lot of power. Arn Tellem was a really popular agent, very powerful. Is that a handful of powerful agents and 7 or 8 or 9 players, you don't want to lose access to those players. So in the NBA, the media is very rarely, Peter Vesey was kind of a unique New York outlier. You tend to kind of soft pedal it with your stars. In the NFL, it's the shield more than the players. You can rip players. You lose access to Mahomes. You don't want to, but you could live without it. There's another 10 big quarterbacks. So the NBA media tends to be a little cozy and does more supporting than reporting. But in the end, there were very few of us, and I include myself in this, that said when KD left the Warriors for Brooklyn, he was making a ridiculous decision. If Patrick Mahomes would have gone to the Chiefs and said, I want to go to the Jets because one of my friends plays there, we would have rolled our eyes and made fun of him. KD, though, he's powerful. Nobody wants to lose access, so everybody just said, well, it's what he wants to do. Do you realize the finals now between the Warriors and the Celtics are KD's former team against Kyrie's former team? That's embarrassing. What it tells you is availability and coachability are big. And in both instances, KD is coachable and he is available. But he went from Steph, who's both, to Kyrie, who's neither. And look at him now. Don't tell me he's okay with it. I don't want to hear about it. KD has DM'd enough reporters I know. He's not sitting there celebrating Golden State's win. Nobody wants to get divorced and the other person flourishes and they sink. Privately, it's not a great time for KD, who I think is an amazing player. He chose Kyrie over Steph. And I said it at the time. One is totally committed and self-aware. One is neither. And so today, Steph is surrounded by a great coach, a championship coach, emerging young players, and hard-working, coachable veterans. KD is surrounded by a young coach who I like, but is he great? Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, the chemistry's not good. Kyrie's regularly not available. Ben Simmons in the last year and a half is never available. Let's be honest about this stuff. We treat NFL players much more harshly in the media than we do NBA superstars. That doesn't mean I'm here to rip Kevin Durant. Love him as a player, one of the all-time greats. I think he's got some self-awareness. I think he's a good guy. He just didn't want to go toe-to-toe and sit down and hash it out with Draymond. Hey, he's a sensitive guy. I get it. I like him. But let's be honest about this. It's a disaster. And there's no easy way out. The Warriors now, they're bringing 3 guys back who are injured. They go 9 deep. There are nights regularly that Brooklyn doesn't go too deep. So sometimes when you watch the favorable coverage of NBA stars, understand this is the backstory. There's a handful of agents and a handful of stars, and the NBA media never wants to lose access to that handful. It has generally been a league that is run by 2 or 3 players. The good news for the NBA, though, it's not now. This finals is going to get a big number. The ratings have been up, and LeBron's not in it, and KD's not in it. So the NBA is slowly becoming a bit more like the NFL. Broad competition. The international basketball talent has really helped in this process. There's a lot of players. You don't need access to 1 or 2. And the good news is the 1 or 2 you'd like to talk to, Giannis is easy. Steph's easy. Luka's willing to talk. But let's be honest now. This finals is KD's old team and Kyrie's old team. and it's an awful look for both. Rick Bucher covered the league since the early 90s, Fox Sports NBA analyst. I will say this. We always look at the team that's more rested, having a big advantage in a series, and I think it can backfire in game one. So the Warriors are moving in multiple new. Iggy's going to play a little. Peyton's back. Otto Porter. So you got some new guys in the rotation. You haven't played in a week. I actually feel like game one's a steal. It's an opportunity for Boston to be like, remember, the most rested usually means ugly first half. So I'm going to start with that. I do think Boston can steal game one. Am I nuts? In your years covering the league, am I nuts?
Yeah, you're nuts.
Okay.
I do believe you can paint a picture where you can convince yourself that the opportunity is there. But there was nothing about the Boston Celtics and the way did they take advantage of opportunities in this Miami Heat series? I felt like no, they had to be sort of cudgeled into playing their best basketball. Being in the series and having a chance to go to the finals wasn't enough. They had to be embarrassed at various times to get the best out of them. And I honestly, I felt better about the Boston Celtics and their chances against the Golden State Warriors. I had them winning this series, but I felt much better about them going into the Eastern Conference Finals than I feel about them coming out of it. They just don't look quite ready for this stage.
Yeah.
Every time it came to closing a game or in a big moment, their best players looked uncertain. It was a collective effort, but I feel as if they outlasted Miami rather than put their foot on their neck and said, we're the better team and we're moving on because we have bigger and better things to get done.
So, Steph Curry's interesting. So I roll my eyes at the shade at Steph Curry. He is not a great defensive player, but there have been a lot of wonderful NBA stars who are not great defensive players. Yes, MJ was. Kareem was, obviously. LeBron in his prime, Duncan. We all know that. Larry Bird wasn't, more of a team defender. But I look at Steph Curry, and I think his legacy is formed. Changed the game, greatest shooter ever, unbelievably selfless, high IQ. Like, I don't think you can change it. But he doesn't have a finals MVP. And for a lot of NBA people, Rick, that's a big deal. Not for me. It is to a lot. So how do you view this with Steph and the importance of the finals?
I do believe that he can change it, and I believe that it will be damaged if he doesn't win it against these Boston Celtics. If Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, or whoever it is who leads the charge for the Boston Celtics, wins the championship and is finals MVP, by comparison, you're going to say, okay, Steph has all these accomplishments. He's all of this. But he's been to the finals all these times, and he's never won finals MVP. He was never good enough to win finals MVP and win the championship. On the flip side, that for all that he's accomplished, that not having been the biggest player, the best player on the final stage is the one thing that holds him back from, at least, not everyone, but a good deal of people out there that don't put him in that LeBron, KD, Michael, Kobe, Akeem, like guys that won multiple championships and had a finals MVP. And I think at this point, he just needs to win one. I've always said he's a very unique superstar in that he has the utmost confidence, and yet he is egoless in terms of inviting everybody into the party.
Right.
Generally, the Kobe's and the Michaels are like, no, get out of the way, let me get it done. Steph's like, oh, I think you might be able to help me here. I'll utilize you, and I don't have a problem if you're the finals MVP. I truly think he thinks that way. But from the outside, when we're measuring him against the all-time greats, it's a little bit different, just because that's the way we look at things. And you mentioned his defense, and I honestly, I think his defense is as good or better than it's been right now. I don't know how much of that is because Klay's has slipped, Draymond's has slipped, and so it isn't so much that Steph has improved, it's just that he's maintained, and some of those other guys are not the same defensive players that they've been. And that is the one caveat that I have, the one question that I have about the Golden State Warriors is whether they are capable of playing defense to the level that the Miami Heat did. How much of what we saw with the Celtics and their stuttering in those big moments is really a credit to the Miami Heat and how stout they were defensively.
All right, 45 seconds here. Darvin Ham, your reaction, Lakers coach.
It's a holiday. What are you talking about 45 seconds? We got okay, go ahead.
So what do you make of it? Darvin Ham, I would have taken Doc, probably wasn't available. What do you make?
Yeah, no, look, I like Darvin Ham as a coach. I think he can be a really good coach. I think among all the candidates available, he was the best choice. But a first-time head coach, you're handing him the expectations of the Lakers, and you're handing him the massive egos with the resumes that they have. It's just a recipe that is going to be a major challenge. I just hope he survives it and is given an opportunity to coach a team that's more fitting for a guy who's just starting out in the job.
Yeah. Everybody likes him. That's something. LeBron said
that was 45, right?
Yeah,
I got that in.
Bucher, for the first time in your life, you left us time.
I know.
I really appreciate it.
I know. Oh, really?
You know I love
Well,
you.
I left time to say Happy Memorial Day to you and Joy and everybody out there.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
My friend Rick Bucher, our friend Rick Bucher. Yeah, I'm going to go Warriors in 6, maybe 5, but been proven wrong before. It's funny, the Miami-Boston series didn't make a lot of sense for me anywhere. I thought Boston, the first 3 games, I thought Boston was clearly the better team that had one horrible quarter. And by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, I think Boston's better. And I'm not really sure.
They have more offense. Defensively, I think they're basically even. Coaching-wise, I mean, but honestly, shout out to Ime. Incredible job. First-year head coach.
Yes.
In the NBA Finals.
Well, and also it points to, people aren't perfect. Jason Kidd struggled his first coaching job. Secondly, young people experience can be overrated a little bit. You don't have to have a ton of experience to. Now, Boston was really clunky. Those players didn't buy into him or couldn't figure it out for the first 2 months. They were not a good team at Christmas, but they are now, and he gets a lot of credit for that.